addition of the newer treatment to ADT has emerged as a desirable approach to delay disease progression and improve overall survival. So this is the case which we are going to discuss today. A case of 58-year-old gentleman from middle socio-economic status is known case of the diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and ISD post CABG. Actually, initially present with the LUTs in March 2019, but at that time PSA was normal. Then he developed hematuria in November 2019, and at that time PSA was 12.37. And after 1 month, PSA again taken, and it is almost same in the December 2019. CT IVP was done by urologist, is normal, except there is a enhancing lesion in prostate. Baseline echo performance status was good and very mild prostatic symptom score. Trans-Garnet biopsy confirmed the cancer, adenocarcinoma. Gleason score is 9 out of 10, 5 plus 4. 11 core were positive. Multiparametric MRI prostate was done. It's showing the locally advanced involving the seminal vesicle, involving the anterior wall of rectum, not intraluminally, involving the left levator muscle and abutting the left obturator internal muscle. And nodes were positive, 2 node positive, left obturator node and left extended node. And there is altered marrow lesion is seen in the right inferior pubic ramus, suggestive of metastasis. This is not MRI plates, but this is the planning CT scan images, which is showing the extension into the rectum, levator muscle, seminal vesicle involvement, right inferior pubic rami metastasis, and normal urinary bladder. And in this planning scan, there is no retroperitoneal lymph node seen. The bone scan suggestive of the confirm the right inferior pubic rami metastasis. CT scan thorax was normal. So final diagnosis is hormone sensitive carcinoma of prostate T4 and 1 M1B stage 4B. Dr. Samir, any other investigation you would like to done in this case?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Manish sir. Yes, so Rushi bhai, in this case, as nowadays almost a standard practice that we prefer doing a PSMA scan in all the patients of prostate cancer. So I would definitely advise a PSMA PET scan.
Okay. What do you call it? Is it high risk, high volume metastatic disease or low volume metastatic disease?
So if I'm not wrong, there's just a single solitary bony lesion. So I would definitely call it a low volume metastatic disease.
Okay, right. So as it is only one lesion in bone and no visceral metastasis, it is called as a low volume metastatic disease. Dr. Manish, do you think ADT alone is sufficient treatment option for this patient?
Yes, Dr. Rishi, because as we have seen in the previous slide that this qualifies into low volume disease or low risk disease. So the benefit of adding docetaxel was primarily on basis of chartered, where they found that high volume disease are the patient who are actually going to get benefited. So it doesn't goes into that. Also at the same time, if we see addition of abiraterone, so as per latitude, there has to be some high risk feature which are either visceral met or Gleason more than 8, which is here in this case. And the last one is more than 3 bone mets. But since 2 factors are required, so this patient again is not qualifying into this risk group. So probably I'll go with only ADT in this particular case.
Then would you like to give continuous or intermittent? Patient is not orchidectomized. Then
no, I would like to give continuous, and I would like to reevaluate this patient maybe after 3 months or 6 months, because since it's low volume disease, only oligomets, probably if the primary disease responds well, then I might consider in future for some kind of local radical intent treatment for this patient.
Okay, Dr. Manish. So you are right. If there is planning to go for the ADT, then continuous one is better than intermittent, as the trial does not show non-inferiority. The only because this patient is very fit because ECOG 0 and 58 years old, then it is better to go for continuous ADT in this case. But there are some side effects for which the ADT is having. One is sexual dysfunction, bony health, low blood hemoglobin, psychological disturbance, and cardiovascular. For that, there is recently FDA approval has been given to the LHRH antagonist, oral relugolix, which is showing the very good sustained suppression of the testosterone, far better than leuprolide, with 54% lower risk of major adverse cardiovascular event. But there is no data where it is not given in any trial in combination with this your androgen receptor inhibitor or abiraterone. So currently it is not standard of the care. So, but if only the ADT is given, just like said by Dr. Manish, then this is one of the options. So what is the treatment you suggest for this patient and why? Dr. Vaishali, can you tell me what is it ADT plus bicaluter alone can be given in this case? Dr. Vaishali? Dr. Suruchi? Dr. Suruchi?
Suruchi, you need to unmute.
Yeah.
So is there still role of the ADT plus bicalutamide means complete androgen blockage in this particular case?
No, normally we are, there is no evidence now to combine it with a bicalutamide combined androgen blockade, but then definitely the evidence is now emerging and it has come with Abiraterone and both the Stampede trial and the Latitude trial that Abiraterone and docetaxel concurrently with ADT are beneficial. But it has to depend upon the general condition of the patient. Plus, he has got so many comorbidities that we need to understand whether we will be able to give this. ADT plus radiotherapy, definitely yes. After a neoadjuvant hormone therapy, I will definitely go just because it's just a one single MET. So it's a low volume disease. So a whole pelvis radiotherapy with the prostate thing. And we will definitely like to cover the bone mat, the solitary mat, which is there in the fields to go to the radical basis.
Okay, very good. Dr. Vikas, can you tell me if we are opting the radiotherapy, is there any role of the brachytherapy to prostate in this case?
No, actually, I want to clarify this as this is a low volume disease, as you are saying from the beginning. Stampede clearly said we should give radiation only to the site of a local disease, that is the prostate, and nodal or the oligo meds need not to be radiated, because it has shown there is no difference in overall survival, but it has definitely has a good biochemical control. In case suppose you are giving the hormonal therapy, your PSMA scan has suggested that there is no disease elsewhere. So, and as per Dr. Manish, it is a low volume disease working only ADT. Suppose there is a oligo progression at one site, so you can include that site in your radiation field. So you can use a fractionation of both, either standard fractionation of hypofractionation or the extreme hypofractionation, like 36 grain 6 fraction or 68 grain 25 fraction or 39 grain 19 fraction. But definitely there is no role of brachytherapy. We use mainly the prostate only in such cases.
Yes, you are right. If we are planning for radiotherapy, then EBRT, hypofractionation is better, and there is no role of the brachytherapy. And dose is to be given to the primary target. So any role of metastatic directed therapy means like SBRT in this particular case? Dr. Trinanjan Basu?
Yeah, hi. So I know we don't have any phase 3 data, but with strong
on Saber Comet, if I have to a single bony deposit, I might as well cover. Like we have done it also, to be honest. We have done it because see, I think if we have technology, and as radiation oncologists, we don't utilize technology. See, our patients never question for fifth line of chemotherapy. On taking nth line of chemotherapy, they never question. If we as radiation oncologists don't endorse our own branch, then there's no point working with high-end technology. We always say we have HPRT setup and then we don't do. We have HPRT, we don't do. Then there's no point. There are safety guideline available. There are protocol available. So one should be confident enough to cover. For oligomet, for prostate, if we don't cover metastatic site, after 3 years down the line, we'll realize all the now Tom will have a phase 3 data and it will show good benefit. So why not give that benefit to the patient? I would strongly cover the metastatic site also.
I agree with you, but at present guidelines don't support this. But I agree with you. It can be given. It is not like that.
It's correct. It's
So,
a very decision.
I want just to add something that
Okay.
I totally agree with Dr. Triranjan that we have data from STORM, and we know that if we treat the metastatic foci, then we have a longer biochemical progression-free survival. Though it's not overall survival, but we have a data that we can have patients biochemically free from the disease for longer time, and now SBRT and other techniques are very safe to use in daily practice. Then I think that this is a valid approach that we also treat that single foci.
Yes, agree.
Even I agree, because here for this patient specially, it is within the portal where we are
Yes,
treating.
yes, yes.
So
You're
we
right.
should definitely try to cover the.
So as it is very nearby to our the primary prostate target, we can even cover this metastatic foci and give the same dose of radiotherapy. So instead of SBRT, we can give this the RT2 just like dose of prostate cancer. So any role of the bone receptive therapy in view of the bone metastasis, Dr. Hemendra Mode. Or Dr. Maitri Bhagat.
Sorry, sir, I didn't hear you.
Any role of the bone anti-receptive therapy in this case as there is a bone metastasis?
Yes, sir. Even if I think even if it is a low volume metastatic disease, we should definitely consider zoledronic acid and such bone anti-resorptive therapies for this patient. It will help him, I think, for the bone metastasis, even if it is very.
Okay. Actually, the role in this case, if it is the same case with the weight-bearing bone, then I think I should consider. But having said it is asymptomatic and not in the weight-bearing bone, we can avoid it. So these are the trials which shows the advantage of the adding docetaxel or abiraterone or apalutamide with ADT in metastatic hormone-sensitive prostate cancer. Majority inclusion criteria was hormone-sensitive prostate cancer. So for the chemotherapy, adding chemotherapy like docetaxel with ADT, there are many trials. Stampede, GETAC, Chartered. In subgroup analysis from the GETAC and Chartered, the beneficial effect of the addition of the docetaxel to the ADT is most evident in men with the de novo metastatic high volume disease. A systemic review and meta-analysis is showing that absolute improvement in 4-year survival of 9% and reduction in the absolute failure-free survival is 16%, but with the some hematological toxicity mainly. The second is the addition of the abiraterone with ADT. These both trials, Stampede and Latitude, is showing the overall survival benefit. While only high-risk patients were included in Latitude trial, Stampede shows the same benefit whatever the risk of volume stratification. No difference in the treatment-related deaths, but there are more chances of the treatment discontinuation because of the side effect of abiraterone. Even in the meta-analysis of these two trials, the addition of the abiraterone was showing benefit, and there is a 163 fewer deaths per 1,000 men with hormone sensitive prostate cancer at 5 years. But there is increased risk of the grade 3-4 adverse event and as compared to the ADT alone. When adding the newer ARIs, newer anti-androgen ARI, enzalutamide or apalutamide, this addition of this improves the clinical outcome with no convincing evidence difference between subgroup like high volume disease or low volume disease. So recently published meta-analysis involving the 7 randomized trial published in JAMA Oncology recently in May 2021. The largest overall survival benefit was observed with the abiraterone and apalutamide. Enzalutamide was associated with the largest radiographic progression-free survival benefit. Docetaxel was associated with the highest risk of serious adverse event. So for radiotherapy to prostate in this metastatic setting, for a trial don't show any significant benefit in overall survival. Median time to progression is, so there is an advantage in progression-free survival with accrued hazard ratio is significant. So in STAMPED trial, where radiotherapy given to prostate only, either 6 gray 6 time or 2.75 gray 19 times, there is improved overall survival from 73% to 81% at 3 years in those with no metastatic burden. Because in this particular case, the 40% of the patients were of lower metastatic burden. Failure-free survival was also improved in a lower metastatic burden disease. So even in the meta-analysis, Cochrane review suggests the survival with an absolute improvement of the 7% in 3 years in men who had 4 or fewer bone metastases. Even NCCN guidelines is also showing the role of the radiotherapy in low volume metastatic hormone sensitive case I mentioned. And there is a role of the SBRT to the bony metastasis in de novo, matlab synchronous metastasis, but it is still in the infantile stage. But there is role of the metachronous metastasis like oligometastasis after the treatment of the primary disease. It is proven beyond doubt, and many trials of the prostate cancer are already conducted. STORM, Oriole, even as Saber Comet trial was basically not meant for prostate only, but in that trial also around 21% patients were from prostate cancer. Actually PSMA PET scan has very significant impact of detecting micro oligometastatic disease in whom which were actually initially not picked up. So PSMA's PET scan is very helpful in even radiotherapy planning of SBRT of these kind of the cases. So how
Dr. Rishi, sorry, Dr. Rishi, 4 minutes only. Try to conclude.
Sure, sir. So how to select the best treatment option is based on the several factors, including volume of the disease, comorbidities, insurance status of co-pay, and potential toxicity. Docetaxel usually given in the 6th cycle only, while newer hormonal therapy can be taking more, need to continue for longer time with additional toxicity. So, so if there is a high volume disease, then docetaxel can be added, abiraterone, apalutamide, enzalutamide. And if it is low volume disease, abiraterone, ARI, and radiotherapy to prostate can be given. So any predictor marker used in this patient can be used. Dr. Samir. Dr. Manish, can you tell any predictive marker can be used in this patient?
So there are few prognostic or predicted markers are there. I'm not sure how much in practically they are actually useful. So BRCA is one of them. Then RB1 gene is also being studied in some of the series, but practically I don't know. I don't use any of these in my practice.
Dr. Thirinanjan, any idea?
I agree with Dr. Manish. I just only know BRCA is done because if they have to give apalutamide, then they that I have seen from our Metonc and other friends doing it. But yeah, practically no. I don't think baseline we have.
I
to-
think now they are coming up with data for Oncotype DX prostate, but even I haven't used the same. And KI67 is also one of them, which is coming up as a predictive marker for this patient.
Okay, actually, these predictor markers is mainly for the CRPC cases. So at present, the germline and somatic alteration in patient with the metastatic castration sensitive prostate cancer do not influence treatment selection except enrollment in the clinical trial. Actually, the latest NCCN guidelines do suggest we need to go for this kind of testing even in a recently diagnosed metastatic cancer. But it is still in the infantile stage. Basically, if these kind of mutations are there, it will help in a crossover the therapy in second line, third line. Addition of the immunotherapy or addition of the maps will help. Will be guided by this kind of the predictive markers. So what we had given actually, patient was given 6 cycle of docetaxel outside along with the Degarelix monthly cycle, and after completion of the 6 cycle, PSA come down to 0.3 from 12 baseline, and response MRI prostate suggestive the reduction in the size of the primary and lymph nodes and extension of the disease. And this because still even after the PSA level was 0.32, urologist outside done bilateral orchidectomy as patient was not compliant on the Degarelix treatment, and even after orchidectomy, within 9 days, still the PSA was 0.3. So there was no difference happened between the before surgery orchidectomy, after orchidectomy, referred to radiotherapy to us. We had given 60 grade 20 fraction, 60 grade 20 fraction to prostate plus SP semen vesicle, and 46 grade 20 fraction to pelvic lymph node plus right inferior pubic rami. So I have covered the 46 grade 20 fraction to inferior pubic rami also, completed on the July last year by IGRT technique with very grade 1, grade 2 toxicity, and current PSA done in the June 21 was 0.09. So this was the case I treated. This is the image. We included the inferior pubic rami in this case. There are some future advances, like in future MABs and immunotherapy can be added to this ADT plus ARI and all. So these are the future advances that further come down the failure rates, but still in the at least at present under trial. Thank you so much.
My topic of deliberation today is asymptomatic solitary bony metastasis on imaging. What is the role of radiation therapy to the prostate? And I have already shared my slides with the panelists, and I hope the topic is well clear and understood, and they are prepared for the question that I am going to ask to them. So whenever this kind of presentation is there, how do you evaluate cancer prostate primary disease as well as the metastasis? Dr. Maitri?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Maitrik Mehta.
Hello, Manish bhai. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always confusion between Maitri and Maitrik.
Yeah, everybody is available. I am not able to see. All the panelists are available?
Yes, available.
Who except for Manish, Dr. Manish Gupta, everybody is available, no?
Dr. Manish, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Everybody is there.
Okay.
So,
yeah, Dr. Maitri Mehta, you take the question.
Yeah, for evaluation of prostate cancer, usually as a standard in GCRI setup, routine investigation plus for local, we standardly we do MRI, and if PSA is more than 20, then we routinely do bone scan. Otherwise, in less than PSA 10, we don't do bone scan for metastatic workup. Otherwise, local MRI abdomen pelvis for local evaluation.
So it is PSA 20 or PSA 10?
20 or more.
Okay. Chirag, any difference of opinion?
We actually stratify according to the criteria given for the risk stratification, and if it is intermediate, unfavorable and onwards, then we should go for the bone scan. Otherwise, allergic investigation with MRI and PSA and biopsy with distance course is enough for the workup. But if it is unfavorable, intermediate, and more, then we should go for the bone scan. And if we find any lesion in the bone scan, then we should go for the PSMA PET-CT to rule out the other metastatic lesion in the body.
So my question to the panelists is, why not PET scan in the upfront evaluation of the CA prostate with the suspected METs or PSA more than 20?
As PET scan is actually, it's also.
Forget about the cost. Forget about the cost. It's not about cost.
If you see the evidence, there is what is the requirement of actual PET-CT upfront. It is not like head and neck. Why in prostate we do upfront PET-CT?
So what is the harm in doing the PET scan? If you are detecting
as Chirag, we told that if it is low risk or favorable risk prostate cancer.
See, I am suspecting bone metastasis. So
Yeah,
rather
on
than
which base we suspect bone metastasis?
for pain, tenderness,
No,
PSA more than
ideally
PSA more than 20.
There are if PSA is more than 20, then standard recommendation is go for bone scan. And if bone scan is positive, then go for
That's
PSA.
what my question. If we go for PET scan upfront, then what is the harm we are doing to the patient?
Ideally, there is no harm.
Ideally, there is no harm. Any difference of opinion? Panelist Nilesh is there?
Yeah, Manish, bone scan is backed by decades of experience. So bone scan is more established, but of course, more practical solution nowadays we practice in our clinic is PET scan, either FDG PET or PSMA PET. Yeah.
So you go for PET scan, or you go for MRI plus PET scan, or you go for MRI plus bone scan, whatever. What is your combination, standard combination?
See, initially I would do MR. If I suspect that the meds are there, or patient has bulky nodes, then I would advise a PSMA PET or FDG PET.
So PSMA PET upfront or FDG PET?
PSMA PET is better. But again, that is also not very well established. But I would, as a practice point, I would prefer PSMA PET because it is more specific.
Okay.
Most of the times, patient already has the PSMA scan by the time they actually come to us.
That's fine. That's fine. But just I want to understand, if patient comes to you upfront without any investigation, then what is the line of investigation that you choose for the patient? So we have different panelists having different opinion. Punit, do you want to say something?
Yeah, basically, as per the NCCN guidelines, basically.
What do you do? What do you do in practice?
MRI and PET scan we suggest. If in your locality PSMA is available, that is the best option which can offer to the patient, so that even the small volume disease cannot be missed. And we can, what's the stage migration is a big problem, because in more than 60-70 patients come in a very late stage, where we.
So I think all the panelists.
I prefer going for the MRI pelvis plus PSMA PET scan, sir. So we can pick up the low metastatic burden disease also if there is oligometastatic or early. So,
I'm not able to see who is this.
Sir, Sumit Goyal. Dr. Sumit.
Yeah. You are not seen. Sorry.
Yeah,
so
Dr.
we have.
Sorry. Can I add? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is Rahul here. So
yeah, Rahul.
Yeah. So PSMA PET is now quite routinely available, and I think most of us practice and use it in our clinic. Although NCCN guideline and even European does not support it yet because of the insurance issues in their countries. They don't have a randomized trial, but we all know that 20 to 30% upstaging happens with PSMA PET scan, with even for the bone metastasis and visceral mets. The lymph node sensitivity is not superior to conventional PET, especially if the size of the lymph node is less than 6 millimeter. So if we understand the caveats, I think it is okay to use it.
Okay. So this is what the panel discussion is all about. But as far as the guidelines and the subject is concerned, the PET scan has a great sensitivity, but it has got less specificity. The results are equivocal. The detection of bony metastatic site may result either in the use of newer or more expensive modality, which may not improve the overall outcome. MRI, as far as primary site evaluation is concerned, the endorectal coil should be available to understand the primary status of the disease. The thing is that if you are using any imaging modality which helps us to detect one or two more lesions or different or but it is more sensitive or specific in picking up the metastasis, whether it is going to affect the outcome, it really needs to be seen. But as far as recommendations are concerned, bone scan is the primary modality of choice for when you are evaluating the prostate cancer patient, and it is well recommended that imaging studies should not be performed based on the best available should be performed on the best available clinical evidence and should not be influenced by the business or personal interest in by the care provider. The conventional bone scans are rarely positive in asymptomatic men with PSA less than 10. But the relative risk of bone metastasis or of PSA doubling time is less than 8 months. It is an important modality. So, what if additional lesions are identified on PET scan that we miss on bone scan? Dr. Rahul, do you want to take this?
So as I said, 20 to 30% upstaging will be there, for the bone metastasis.
So is it going to affect the treatment decision?
No, so generally it may not if you already had one metastasis and you detect two more. But suppose if it is a borderline in which you have low volume and then you detect it to be high volume, one issue is that. One is on bone scan, you don't find an uptake or a MET, but on a PET scan, you find an uptake, then the management may shiver, right? So that's the basic issue and dilemma in the clinic when we are sitting with PET scan. And that's why you need MDT and, you need to go ahead according to that. Yeah.
So, Dr. Sonali, any take on this? If you have more metastatic lesion find on PET scan as compared to the bone scan, is it going to affect your treatment?
As he said, if
practically,
it changes,
theoretically, they're all.
Yeah. Practically, yes, the decision may change whether it's going to be a radical approach to treatment or whether it's going to be a palliative. If the disease volume is very high, then the aim of treatment may change.
So we are discussing about the asymptomatic bone metastasis and the role of radiotherapy to the prostate cancer. The basic scenario remains same.
Okay.
So in that context, whether it is going to affect your approach?
The systemic therapy approach may change depending on the volume.
So
the local treatment for asymptomatic bone mets or the local prostate treatment may not vary much.
So it's asymptomatic patients. The bone scan is showing five lesions. The PET scan is showing 7 lesions. Now you tell me what is your take on it?
That would change the management.
Okay, Puneet.
Yeah, I mean, it will not overall. I mean, as per the STAMPEDE trial, if it is a low volume, it is impressive overall survival which we have seen. And if it is more than 3 or 4 vertebrae, as you are telling, it's more than 5, then it's a high volume. And in that case, the survival benefit, if we see with radiation giving to the primary, and this is not that significant. It's better if it's a low volume.
In short, your treatment management is not going to be affected by if you have picked up 2 or 3 more lesions in asymptomatic bone patients.
So Dr. Manish, if I can add, so
yes.
STAMPEDE and HORAD, both the studies, they were based on bone scans. They did not have the information available for the PET scan.
Yes.
Now, if you go by that, then obviously they will 30% or 20%, whatever is the number of, it will be upstage even in that data if that was done, PET scan was done, So I think if we are going to extrapolate the bone scan data into the clinic or the STAMPEDE data in the clinic, it's best to go with that rather than, trying to apply the same volumetric metrics for detecting low volume disease based on PET scan. I hope I'm clear, or is it confusing?
Dr. Manish, I would like to add one thing more.
Yes.
As per the STAMPEDE trial and HORAD trial, actually they have taken the definition of low volume and high volume disease according to the latitude and chartered criteria. Okay, and if we consider the chartered criteria, if any bony metastasis or any visceral metastasis outside the vertebra or pelvic region, then it will be automatically turned into the high volume disease. Okay, so the prognosis and the treatment results would be changed in both the cases, and addition of radiotherapy would not be as much if it is high volume disease.
See, that is discussion, but our primary patient is asymptomatic patient.
That is okay, but
with-
do any of us will treat prostate as a curative treatment with 7 vertebral metastases?
Yes.
Asymptomatic.
So we are discussing the same thing. We are discussing the same thing.
That's
See,
what we are actually.
See, oligometa. I will come to this discussion. What does oligomets means? Whether you are diagnosing it on primary basis, or whether you are diagnosing after neoadjuvant hormonal treatment, or whether you are diagnosing
in all
giving
this
some kind of neoadjuvant treatment.
But
Oligomets doesn't mean primary oligomets. It can be post treatment also.
But in
post neoadjuvant treatment
in
also.
Stampede trial, it was
We'll discuss. I'm coming to that. I'm carrying my discussion to that. So, as far as NCCN recommends, the FDG PET scan should not be routinely used for staging of prostate cancer, since the data is limited in the prostate cancer. And there is an interesting, when I was going through the literature, there is an interesting phenomenon which is called as Will Rogers effect. And they say that when the worst prognosis patients, when the worst prognostic patient from one risk group move to the higher risk group, the average outcome of both the risk group will improve, even if the treatment has no impact on the on disease. This is known as Will Rogers effect. So, if I want to simplify this statement, it means that even if you are upstaging your disease by using a higher, more precise modality of the treatment, it is not going to affect the overall outcome. So, this was the point that I wanted to discuss, that this is why bone scan and MRI has still pivotal role for primary evaluation of the prostate cancer patients. So now, when we are talking about the metastasis, we have to think about whether it is a solitary or oligomets, whether we are talking about low volume disease or the high volume disease, or whether the patient is symptomatic or asymptomatic. All these 6 scenarios have different permutations and combination. A solitary mets can be, a patient can be severely symptomatic. A high volume disease patient can be having can be a asymptomatic patient also. So, what is the effect when you define all these parameters? Dr. Chirag was telling about the definition of oligometastasis according to charted trial. Dr. Maitrik, what do you understand by having oligomets in prostate cancer
Oligomets,
patients?
what they've written in the literature, it should be less than 4 vertebral metastasis as oligometastasis, only vertebral. Ideally, it should be less than 4. And they are telling
and
that
it can be visceral also?
Oligomets actually in clinical practice, if it is visceral metastasis, then we take patient out not for curative treatment.
Rahul, any say on this?
So there are various definitions in literature, So the older ones is what just now people said. One is low and high volume, or low risk and high risk. Then there is like visceral metastasis out. Bone lymph nodes is better than bone versus visceral. But recently now with the PET, a lot of phase 2 studies are coming up which are using volume as a marker on PSMA PET. So 250 cc or 300 cc is the cutoff of the metastatic disease volume that they are using rather than number of sites or itself. So I think it's just still an evolving concept of what is what right now.
So in TMH, how do you practice about evaluating?
So we go with the low volume and high volume disease definition only right now. Rest all is still evolving, I suppose.
Low volume means less than 4 or 5 metastatic sites limited to the axial scale.
Correct.
Okay, so the take on as far as the definition is concerned is according to the charted trial, as Maitrik was telling. So these are the 2 studies. One is HORIDE trial and one is the Stampede trial, which helps us to understand this patient and to treat patient according to the information that they provided to us. So apart from the basic information that we get from HORIDE trial, it is criticized because this trial failed to show any benefit in the overall survival. From beginning, it was having insufficient power to show difference in overall survival. It was designed to demonstrate 10-month difference in but standard arm had better predicted survival. Initially, it was planned for 500 patients, but then after interim analysis, the patients were limited to the 426. It lacks granularity on comorbidities. In this trial, only half of the patient received systemic therapies, which questions the fitness of the population. The median PSA is 142, which we all understand that it suggests of high tumor burden. So it's not the low volume disease that this trial incorporated. And obviously, because of the lack of selection and stratification for various reasons, this trial was not able to prove what it was supposed to be. In Stampede trial, it was planned for 1250 patients with goal to get 25% improvement in both failure-free survival and overall survival. The median PSA was 98 in this patient, and 20% of the patients received docetaxel. So after median follow-up of 37 months, no improvement was found in overall survival, which confirms the importance of tumor burden. Patient with low tumor burden had 8% improvement in overall survival when it was analyzed. So, and again, in this trial, the radiobiological equivalent doses were below the conventional doses that we treat for radical intention. So all these things were associated with both the trials, because of which few of the endpoints were recommending the treatment that we are going, and for the other factors, we were not able to handle it. So in Charted trial,
Sorry
less
to
than 4
interrupt,
metastases.
sir. Sorry, sir. We need to conclude now. We are running out of time.
So shall I stop now?
Sir, you can give the concluding remarks. Sorry, sir.
No, for next 5 minutes.
So it would have been better अगर मैं बोलता रहता.
ना अगर आप बोलते रहो, it's nice actually. अभी ना ये थोड़ा important ज़्यादा है.
ठीक है.
अच्छा मैं
So low volume disease is prognostic marker of overall survival and predictive marker of response to localized RT. The Stampede showed that prostate radiotherapy did improve survival in those patients with low metastatic burden, as I told you earlier. So now the other point that I wanted to discuss is when we talk about the local radiotherapy to the prostate, why not surgery to the prostate? If we are talking about the local treatment, why should not be patient operated upon with the low metastatic burden or asymptomatic bone metastasis? Any take on that? Dr. Chirag? Dr. Maitri?
Trials are going on. The SWOG trial in Atlanta trial is going on. Even TRACBON trial is also going. Comparison of the surgery as a local treatment along with the ADT. And there are other trials also which includes abiraterone as well as the docetaxel in other arms with the comparison of radiotherapy also. So the trials are going on, and then results will come within 2-3 years.
So this is one of the scenario where the radiotherapy trials came before the surgical trials. And we are having an edge because of that thing. But still, there are 9 trials which are going on, and as Dr. Chirag said, that this trial will help us to understand what is the role of surgery in doing so. But the theory remains that radiotherapy elicits the wide range of effects, which primarily includes anti-tumor immunity, and because of which the results are better. Theoretically, surgery accelerates tumor cell dissemination, which increases the circulating tumor cells by enhancing the immune evasion, and it causes entrapment at metastatic sites and increases migration capabilities. And because of this thing, they say that surgery does not give the kind of result that radiotherapy otherwise gives when we treat the patient of this presentation with the prostate area. Also, the radiotherapy is cost effective. Few words about pelvic node radiotherapy, dosages and target volume, and brachytherapy. Rahul, can you please summarize what is the role of pelvic node radiotherapy, or what are the doses that we should give, and what is the role of brachytherapy if radiotherapy as a treatment modality is concerned in this setting?
But are we talking in oligomet, or you're talking in general for prostate?
Oligomets.
So oligomet, I don't think we will be today. The brachytherapy is being recommended, or pelvic node radiotherapy is also not recommended.
Yes.
For the prostate local RT, we generally go by the standard treatment, whatever is equivalent. So in our TMH, we generally give it short course hypofractionated, that is 35 in 5 fractions, SBRT
Weekly?
kind of. No. So we do it alternate day. But I think as per the Stampede, you can go with the same weekly schedule also, or similar 50 gray equivalent also.
Any role of pelvic node radiotherapy?
I don't think it is right now established to do pelvic radiotherapy for oligometastatic condition.
So just to summarize, the Stampede suggests 36 in 6 gray, which is weekly fractionation as Rahul was telling, or 55 gray and 20 fractions. HORAD was initially started with 70 and 35 fractions, but the optional doses were 57.76 and 19 fractions, 3 times per week for 6 weeks. These are biologically equivalent in terms of biological equivalence. These are lesser doses, but then this volume, according to the recommendations, the higher dosages, if we give to the oligometastatic patient, can lead to the increase in toxicity. And if you intend to use higher dosages, then we should use in trial setting. And as far as the because it is asymptomatic side, so I'm not going to discuss about the radiotherapy to the secondary side. But if it is a symptomatic, then you can use Edgar as a single dose, and the technique whatever is available, you can choose according to the clinical decision. So radiotherapy to the prostate should not be performed in men with high volume metastatic disease outside the context of a clinical trial. And these recommendations are based on HORAD and STAMPED trial, which showed an improvement in overall survival from the addition of radiotherapy to primary when combined with the ADTs. Thanks.